So this is the eighth How to Human. I incorrectly labeled the last one as the sixth because I started counting from zero, and apparently I can't count. So this is the series How to Human, where I try to figure out how to be a better human, and I share it with my perspectives. I do everything pretty much as assertions, but this isn't me having figured everything out. This is me exploring how to do it, and I don't generally look at my life as I'm doing things questionably. I look at it as this is what I'm doing, and then I make changes on them based on the results that I get. And so I look at everything from a very positive, this can work perspective, and then I see critically, or I look at it critically, and I think this didn't work so well, and that's kind of how I make changes to things. And so if it seems like I'm just asserting things, that's because that's how I approach life, and then I'm very critical of the results so that I can make changes and get better results over and over time. So this episode, I'm gonna go over this concept that I came up with, which is called "We Were Born to Think." And so I think that thinking is actually the most important thing that we do as humans, and I believe that we're the only species that we know of at all that does anything that we consider to be thinking. And obviously other species have different kinds of intelligence. They can reason in different ways. Crows can solve puzzles, and obviously dolphins are intelligent to some good extent. They have communication and a type of language with each other. But when we look at what humans do, I think it's pretty clear that the gap between us and everything else that we know about is huge. It's not even close to close together. And in fact, even between humans, there's a huge gap between humans that don't prioritize thinking and humans that do prioritize thinking, in the amount of thinking that they can do and the capabilities that they have of their thought, and then what they can actually accomplish, like physically manifest, make changes in the world with their thoughts. And when we look at pretty much all the things that we do, which building buildings and cars and even driving cars, it's pretty amazing the stuff that we do. And our nervous system is actually set up for us to be tool users in this extent. If you look into the experimental science, which is science based on experiments, from the nervous system, the current conclusions in neuroscience are that when we pick up a tool, our proprioceptive system, or proprioceptive system, I'm not sure exactly how to say it, I think it's proprioceptive is what I've always heard, is the system that determines our ability to exist in 3D space and to sense our bodies and to sense what's around us. So why we know that our hands would do this kind of thing, what position our hand would be in when we move it, what position our body's in, shoulders up, shoulders down. We have this sense of space. And so this is the proprioceptive system. And when we pick up an instrument, it immediately gets kind of mapped into this proprioceptive space. So for instance, if I pick up a pen or something like this, immediately this pen I'm able to control it. I can feel where the weight is of the pen, and I can do things with it as an extension of my body. I don't have nerves in the pen, but my nervous system extends out through the length of the pen, and if it's heavy in one end or something like that, my nervous system knows that, and it knows that when I move it, I'm going to feel that. And as I use this instrument more, I get better and better at using it. And that's why when you first pick something up, you're not as good at it as you are at using it as you are later on. You know, like if you are using a Phillips head screwdriver to screw something in, when you're new to it, you'll miss the screw a lot and you'll slip it out a lot. And then later on, when you're more used to it, if the Phillips screwdriver starts to slip out of the screw, you'll feel it through the screwdriver, and you'll be able to correct, maybe adding more pressure or angling it better so that it doesn't slip out. And this is an ability that we have as humans. And other animals use, like chimpanzees use sticks to eat ants and things, but they're really quite awkward about it. They kind of hold the stick, this prop again, in kind of a weird way, and just kind of like kind of scoop it out, but it's quite awkward. Other animals do other things with tools too, but they're also quite awkward. And this gap between how we use tools and how other animals use tools is enormous, and our ability for language is enormous. Even if dolphins have language, they don't have anything like what we have, and they're not developing in the same way we have. And it's not like dolphins haven't been around for a long time. They could have developed this if they wanted to, and in fact, most of time they haven't been as threatened as they are now because of what we're doing. So my premise with this is that we were born to think. This is one of the qualities that we have. Just like we were born to use tools, it's a quality that we have. We're born to language, it's a quality that we have. And it doesn't mean that the first people were able to speak with language, but it certainly means that we have all that capability. And this is why, it takes so long for us to grow up. And, when you look at species that are sort of instinct driven, you can look at, say, a spider. And when a spider comes out of its nest, cocoony nest, it's got all the skills that it will ever have. It can hunt. It will breed at the appropriate time. It can spin webs. It does everything that a spider can do right then. And with humans, it takes years and years for us to gain skills. And in fact, we never stop. And it used to be that not that recently, we thought that neurogenesis, the creation of neurons, was something that slowed down in your late kind of adolescence, like maybe 10, 8. And then by the time you were a teenager, it was pretty much slowing down. And by the time you were in your 20s, it was done. And then you were only going to lose brain cells. And then that got reversed. We found that there is no neurogenesis. Anytime that you're interested in something and you're looking at it and you're excited, you will create new brain cells. They will grow. Now, when you're younger, it happens faster, but it happens all the time. And so, our brains are constantly growing. Our nervous system is constantly growing, creating new connections with each other if we use our brains, if we think. And so we're the only ones that we know of that are capable of doing this. And of course, people have posited that there are aliens out there. There must be aliens because there's so many stars. So there must be aliens, but we don't know anything about this. No one's ever proved there's aliens. People are coming on the internet now and saying that they know about aliens and stuff. Whatever. No alien has showed up ever and said, here we are, and we prove it because, look at our stuff. Look at us. We have none of that. We have no other creatures that can think. We're the only ones. And so in a lot of ways that puts an opportunity, and if you want to be a responsible person, you could say a responsibility to think and not to waste these attributes that we have, and to be destructive and to waste our potential for creativity, to destroy the environment rather than to protect the environment. When we come up with arguments on why to do good things, they should not be stupid arguments that can't be reasoned. It's like, if you want to protect the argument, but you have stupid reasons and you haven't thought it out because you don't think, and when people point things out to you, you refuse to listen to them, even though they might be in agreement with you that we should protect things, you've decided not to think. And so this is a real problem because it's happening quite a bit. And so we're not using our capacities to the extent that we could because we don't want to. We're embarrassed to have our own ideas. We might be dumb. We might say something stupid. We might be a failure. Any of these things, why people wouldn't want to use their brain and come up with their own ideas and not just repeat things that other people say, and not just assume that everything's been worked out. Like, there's a concept called settled science where it's assumed that we know and everything's right and this is as good as it's going to get. And that's absolutely ludicrous because we certainly do not know how anything at all works. There's not a single thing that we really understand. It's like you can just keep asking why, and pretty soon 5, 6, 7 whys later, we don't know. We don't know. No one can tell us. We're not sure. And so that's just the way it is. It's like, so this idea that we don't need to think anymore, that everything's done, that phones, like mobile phones, smartphones are the epitome of creation, and that, you know, maybe we'll get self-driving cars, and maybe they'll be able to fly someday, and like that's it. That's all we really need to do. People are working on it, and we can all just shut off our brains and watch TV. If you want to do it, sure. You know, I'm not telling you not to, but we are the only creatures who are capable of this level of thought that we know of. And there's nothing that says in the future we're going to find anyone smarter than us. We're going to find anyone more capable of thinking than us, because we have not found it yet. So we have zero evidence for this. So the idea that people say that it's a probability that has to exist, it doesn't have to exist. You can have all the probability in the world you want. We have no evidence for this. We are the only ones who can think. And so for those of us that want to be responsible, we should think, and we should not just repeat things. We were born to think. So that's my idea. You know, if you know what the word Homo sapiens means, it means wise man. And I think a lot of people are not interested in living up to this right now. They're not interested in being wise. They don't like wisdom necessarily. They're more interested in other topics. And again, if they want to do that, that's fine. But we are the only ones that are capable of being wise. It's no matter how smart dolphins are, none of them can solve any of the problems that we've created, nor anyone else. And, you know, there's been a number of people who posited over times that artificial intelligence will come and save us. As someone who writes software frequently, I don't see that as being possible at all. All artificial intelligence can do is run things that we already do. We tell it to do. We can have specific artificial intelligence that we can train, which means we had to train it to do a specific thing. There's expert artificial intelligence where we've given it basically a bunch of conditions for it to check and to perform different operations. Again, that means that we have to have done all the thinking. And then there's this idea that we can have a super or general AI that's going to come out and just be smarter than all of us. And it's really not very clear thinking to think that something is just going to come out, be better than all of us, and solve all the thinking problems for us. That's lazy, irresponsible. It's not really thinking things through, because that thing that we create that we would think maybe is a general or super artificial intelligence could be destructive very easily. It could be not helpful. It could be there's all kinds of possibilities that have nothing to do with it solving our problems and getting good results for it. So to give up our thinking because we think that there's someone who will think better than us is silly. There's not a single person on the planet that can think for you. You're the only one who can think in your life for your circumstances to get you better results that will help you. And so if you don't use your mind to think about those things, then you will suffer for not having those good results. Your opportunity costs are high because you will lose those opportunities. Whereas if you try to think and you try to understand things and you try to be a wise man, a Homo sapien, you will have better results over time. You will start to see things that you didn't see before because you weren't looking. You didn't think about it. So that's kind of what I wanted to say, that we're born to think. You know, I've talked to a number of people who said basically didn't think this was a thing. They didn't think it was important that we thought. They didn't think thinking wasn't a very important task. And to me, you know, thinking is what led to language and what's led to communication and agreements, social contracts, so that we don't have to be violent with each other. We don't have to have wars constantly. We've gotten rid of legal slavery because we've agreed that it's wrong. We're not going to do it. It's like wrong for many reasons. And this has required thinking. Not thinking will revert us. And so to me, thinking is very important. It's the most important thing. And when I look at our place in the universe, we're the only ones doing it. And we're the only ones that we know of that can do it. And assuming that there'll be something else that comes along that does it better than us and will solve problems is very mature and pretty much, I would say, not thinking, not using the facts that we have at hand to determine the best outcome for ourselves. So we're going to get poor results like that. And yeah, so I'm not really trying to make a point or argue that you should think more, that everyone has to think more. I'm really just kind of saying it because I think it needs to be said. It's something that seems to not be iterated enough, not be put out there enough that you should do your own thinking, that you were born to think. I was born to think. We were all born to think. Just like we were born to use tools, just like we were born to communicate. People can argue all they want about how those things came into being, but we're the only ones doing them. We're the only ones capable. Every one of us is capable. You can always improve your capabilities. If your language skills aren't so good, you can improve them. If your tool using skills aren't so good, you can improve them. If your thinking abilities aren't so good, you can improve them. Everything can be improved, and so you can always be a better you than you used to be. And so that means, you know, from any moment in your life, you can decide to be smarter, decide to be more intelligent, decide to be more knowledgeable, decide to be more wise by thinking about the things that you've done and thinking about, are these good or bad for you and for other people? Should you continue to do more of this or do less of this? If you looked at my last video on the positive and negative feedback loops, thinking is required to understand a positive or negative feedback loop and to change it yourself. It's like you may have those things become set up without thinking about them, just through reaction, but that's kind of like the spider. The spider doesn't think. The spider just goes out and eats and mates and makes webs, and that's what the spider does. And if you want to be more like a spider, where you're just more instinctive and reactive, you can do it, but then we're going to lose a lot of things, because spiders can't have agreements with each other. Spiders eat other spiders. They're cannibals. Parent spiders will eat their own child spiders. Child spiders will eat their parent spiders. It's like they're not social creatures. They haven't learned to have those skills, and it was thinking that allowed us to do that. So once again, this is my 8th video of the How to Human series. We were born to think. That's my topic for today. Thanks.